MorristownGreen.com.
What are you looking for?
Well, I have my plan. I have what I thought was their original plan. It shows clearly that seats were added. That's the issue.
But we don't have an original plan that shows that there were any seats.
Well, it shows. Maybe we should look at that because it just shows open room.
Right.
Okay, now it shows in that area that it's full-scale seating.
My position is that we don't have any information to cooperate or refute the statement.
Well, you would have to have because you voted on it.
But
All right, I'll make that argument.
you'll make the argument. We
The new
can't.
drawings, when the transfer took place, the older drawings are from
The 90s.
the 90s, 1990, 1980,
All right,
1990. So they've been in the file for.
We're going to ask Mr. Williams some questions, and then he obviously gets to make his closing remarks and present his case.
And so we will continue. So at this time, members of the council, if they have any questions of the applicant, I guess now would be a good time to ask them. Councilman Armington?
Sure. Let me just start off with the 1,038 capacity of the future capacity, approved capacity. I'm trying to distinguish between capacity and actually what, how many people actually want to be at the Iron Bar. As I understand it, the current capacity is 800 people.
Right.
And can you provide any details on, or since opening, how many times you've had 800 people in the Iron Bar?
I couldn't do that for you tonight, no.
More than a dozen times?
I would imagine so.
So in the past 3 years, maybe a dozen times?
No, you just said more than a dozen, I would say
Okay.
yes.
I guess so that goes to my first question. I'm sorry, I don't have the name of the anthropologist, economist.
Mr. Perry?
Yes. From your professional experience in terms of market-based things, and given the significant opportunities outside of around the Iron Bar, how likely is it that you'll have over 1,000 people in the Iron Bar on a regular basis?
Well, I was asked to look into this as a demographer. I'm an anthropologist. I look at population changes. And the main interest that Paul and his partners had, and it had more to do with, are you going to be able to market to an older clientele? So I didn't really look at the current numbers of people who attend the Iron Bar on a given basis. It really was more a question of looking at the feasibility of a new kind of business based upon demographic changes that can be observed in Morristown by studying census data. So that's really more where I was at. I also wanted to make a point there. I guess there was some confusion about that. It's like that's what my background is, and I'm not a marketing person per se. I was trying to assist them by just giving them information about population. So that's really what my background is.
Mr. Armington, I can answer that first question. Virtually almost every weekend, the Iron Bar operates at capacity, and we have a waiting line.
Okay, so another question for you, since you
Yes.
So you basically testified that you felt that there was a market for this type of establishment in Morristown. Did you in your studies, did you look at whether or not there's a market for this type of establishment that closes at 11 or 12 o'clock?
Didn't really look at hours. I was more interested in the kinds of environment that's going to attract certain sorts of people. And if you take a look around the square, you certainly are having businesses that are having good success in attracting a somewhat older demographic that's a little bit more mature and interested in a different kind of experience than just going to a bar. Really, it's the fact that such businesses are successful in Morristown indicates that you do have an opportunity, there is space for another one, and if it's marketed well, it's going to be, considering, for example, that within Morristown you've managed to attract a large number of young people, those people get older. You know, so yeah, I think very definitely there is a good market for a business that's going to cater to a more mature crowd.
I think just for the record, we should probably note that there are no bars in town, they're all restaurants.
Okay. Well, I mean, excuse me for using the term bar, but I mean venues really. I mean, when you're talking about what's being proposed here, it's a restaurant and a music venue, and it's something that there isn't a great deal of. It's been pointed out there's some other places that doesn't quite like this.
So then, okay, so. I guess I'm juggling with the idea of is this more of a jazz club or more of a restaurant? You know, the jazz is not. One of the public's testimony suggested that is there an issue or why is the jazz in the name? There was testimony by John Ginty that he's seen the plans and there's a top-notch stage and sound system, but the architect sort of approximated where about the stage would be, but it would be covered with tables. So I'm concerned that there's not really a stage unless there's music, and we're going to take some tables away and then move it back, which gives me the impression that it's more of sort of a restaurant that might have jazz when jazz was available. But I guess I don't have a question for that. Is there a stage? Is there a permanent stage?
There's no permanent stage. As indicated by the architect, we could move a couple tables if we have a group that needs a stage. If not, we can accommodate them when you come into the left. But I think it's quite clear from the plan that was presented that this is a restaurant.
Right.
And that jazz is just a complement to the restaurant.
Okay.
Because we would certainly not invest this kind of money if it was just going to be a jazz club where you come in and have bar bites and a drink. This is a major investment, well over $1 million, which requires tremendous supportive services. And as we've indicated to you, only roughly half of the space is for the public. This is, behind the wall improvements, kitchen, storage, so forth. So nobody would put this kind of money in if it wasn't going to be a restaurant, because we could do it a heck of a lot less expensive if we just put up 4 walls and tables.
That's all I have.
Councilman Smith-Reid?
I have comments, no questions.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. Elms? One is Foster? Okay.
Michelle.
Oh, Michelle, do you have any questions?
I don't have questions, I just have statements. I'm a little concerned. So here goes. I don't want to.
Hold on a second.
Okay, I just want to give everyone one last chance. Everyone has all the information that they need. All your questions have been asked. Okay. And actually mine have as well. So Michelle, if you'd like to start, if you have a statement or comments to make.
Well, would that be appropriate after I sum up?
Oh, I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming out now tonight, and members of the public. I'm glad to see that Morristown is active in their community. They try to vigilantly examine what's happening in the town. I think one thing that you have to keep in mind, as I said at the beginning, you represent 18,500 people. Now granted, maybe only half of them could vote, but only 15 showed up here to voice some opposition, and some of those were married to each other. So we don't have any widespread sentiment about an opposition to this application. Virtually every case in the state of New Jersey that denies a place talks about 200 or 300 people coming out and talking about the quality of life issues that will be exacerbated because of the increase in people coming to the site. We diffused that entire argument. From day one, I told you that we will keep the same occupancy that the Iron Bar is entitled to have. We would be entitled to have, should you approve this, with or without a liquor license, 1,278 people. We said we won't do that. We recognize legitimate concerns and we can work with it. We're going to invest over $1 million in vacant space. We're not adding any space. Other remarks about other applications That involved new buildings, new space. This space is there. We're here tonight because the administrative code states that if somebody objects, you have to have a hearing. You've had a hearing over 2 nights. We're asking you to approve an expansion in existing space adjacent to the space that presently operates of 4,703 feet. The regulation NJAC 13:2-7.7 states that if you're not in favor of an application when you vote, you must tell us why. You have to give us reasons. These reasons have to be based on facts. There have been no facts presented to you that in any way would give you the ability to deny this application. Quality of life issue, I hear this term all over. How can there be a quality of life if we're keeping the same people we have now? You do, however, have a number of reasons to approve it. And they're very simple. Number one, as I told you on June 4th, if you check the state code, state statute, NJSA 33:1-1T, this application qualifies as a restaurant. Everybody throwing out bars and so forth, this is a restaurant under the statute that regulates this use. Your zoning officer and your master plan tells you that this is an appropriate use. If there's quality of life issues, change your code. Don't allow this to be a permitted use. You can't tell people that they invest in a property that they can't use it if they comply with your code. Why do you have that? Why do you say that this is an appropriate use for this center if it's not? You have received, as I indicated in June 4th, and still as we sit here tonight, no objection from your health department, your building department, your recreation department, the Morristown Parking Authority, the fire department, or most importantly, the people that regulate quality of life and what goes on in your town, the police department. They haven't come before you and say they're concerned about this application. You just have 15 people that come out that live basically at 40 Park, they're concerned. Most of them weren't concerned when the office expanded their premises. And once again, you did the right thing with the office. Somebody that wants to come in and invest $1 million on an upgrade of their facility, you should permit it. You did. You also told them they could stay open at 2 a.m. Nobody objected. Good for you. You did the right thing. There has been no objection from any civic association or church or anybody other than the 15 people that have appeared. The licensee, the Iron Bar LLC, trading as the Iron Bar, has operated since May of 2012 without any ABC violations. You haven't had one noise violation. So if people are making noise, the Iron Bar has never been held responsible for any noise. Now you know because you live here. There's a whole strip of restaurants, taverns, and other activities in that area. We've never been charged, never been convicted. We play by the rules. What is the concern about the Iron Bar? We haven't received one violation. Now, if we play by the rules, you shouldn't penalize us because 15 people don't want us to expand. The expansion will allow this particular building to be stabilized. And you, as an ABC board and a governing body, should want to control what goes in there. If you don't approve this application and the Iron Bar doesn't expand, what do you get next? If it's not an ABC premises, you have nothing to say about it. As long as they comply with your zoning ordinance, you don't have control. If you allow the expansion, you have control. The sale of alcoholic beverages in this state is one of the most highly regulated industries. You have Title 33, and then the New Jersey rules and regulations of the Division of Alcohol Beverage Control, which are voluminous. Under the regulations and under the statute, you surrender your Fourth Amendment rights under the Constitution. What could be worse? If you want to sell liquor, you don't have the rights under the Constitution, the Fourth Amendment. You give up so much to have the privilege to sell liquor, to sell alcohol. We want to sell it at a restaurant. If you wanted to make this a bar, we wouldn't design it the way they did. We wouldn't have 32 seats at the bar, we'd have 80. We wouldn't invest all the money in the kitchen. We want to open a quality restaurant. Why shouldn't you give this applicant the ability to do so? Finally, you have to be fair. And I want you to be fair. You were fair to the office, our neighbor. Right next door, you approved the expansion of the office, which if you go on any of the websites, clearly states they doubled their seating capacity. Check your minutes from the meeting when they appeared here. They told you that they were not increasing bar seats. That's in your minutes. You have a copy of that. But everybody knows, and good for them. They increased their seating and did a wonderful job. They're now the Tavern and Grill. You did the right thing. Why would you now have any doubt about letting the Iron Bar develop the Iron Bistro and expand into 4,700 square feet, give or take, without any additional people? The office gets to double their occupancy by their seating, and you're concerned about the Iron Bar, and we're not increasing our occupancy. You have to be fair. You can't discriminate against somebody that comes before you because you say, we just don't like the Iron Bar. You have no facts to base it on. You have no municipal violations. You have no state violations. They have a perfect record. You should welcome them to invest $1 million in your community. You also, as a governing body, did not object to the Jockey Howell Bar and Kitchen, where they're developing 15,000 square feet of space. I applaud you for not objecting. You did the right thing. It's another great facility coming to Morristown. They're going to have an oyster wine bar. They're going to have the Veil Bar. They're going to have the Rat Skeleton. They're going to have the dining room. 15,000 square feet. Was anybody concerned about quality of life then? You had the opportunity to object. This town made it very easy for them, and good for you. You said you don't even have to buy a liquor license. It's valued almost $1 million in this town. We'll give you one for free. We'll sign off on it. We'll get a state, and you can go get a state concessionaire's permit, $2,500. They didn't have to buy a liquor license. They get to compete against everybody else without having to spend the money for a liquor license. But you did a good thing. You didn't oppose progress in this town. You allowed them to what I think, based on everything I've been able to read, to be a great facility. You should allow the Iron Bar to do what they want to do. There should be no special condition on the approval other than that we've already agreed to. We will keep our occupancy just what the Iron Bar has. We're not going to go to 1278. We'll keep it at 1243. We'll have no dance floor. Another concern that you've expressed. But we will have fine food. We will offer this community a unique opportunity. And hopefully, you will be fair. And you will approve this application and allow the Iron Bar to expand and to continue to be a law-abiding citizen in your town and continue to regulate itself within the confines of the rules and regulations of the division and the state statutes. So I ask you to approve the application with those two special conditions. Once again, thank you.
Okay, at this time, Councilwoman Harris, I think you had one. Would you you like to go first with your comments?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I'm coming from the standpoint of just being a council person at large, but also being a resident of Morristown for so many years, from the age of 3 years old. And in the history of Morristown, you can see this influx of immigrants and how the business, this types of businesses change. And when I was growing up, there were a lot more African-American businesses in the lower part of Martin Luther King. We had Italian businesses on Speedwell Avenue, and the majority of the business district was a diverse community, but there was a lacking in the African-American interest. And what I'm seeing now in Morristown is a very unique community. In the past 4 years, I've seen an increase of African-American people within our community and outside our community come in and take part in the vibrant development of Morristown over the past 10 years. And historically, we've never had a jazz club. We've had 3 somewhat bars, one on Speedwell Avenue, one on the upper part of Martin Luther King, which was really in the township, and then we had the American Legion was on outer skirts of Abbott Avenue. And now we have the opportunity for a jazz club to come in Morristown, and I'm excited about it. I've spoken with a few of the ministers and different residents in the African community, and they're excited about coming to Morristown and participating, knowing that maybe on a Sunday, once a month, there's a jazz brunch. And they have this already happening in other communities. And New York City is one of the hot spots, of course. It's B.B. King's, and every Sunday they have a jazz brunch. They have jazz constantly every day. But if you go on the Jazz Club Monthly magazine, there's only 4 clubs in the state of New Jersey. There's Trumpets in Montclair, there's Jazz in the Starlight Room in Hopewell, there's Crossroads in Garwood, there's the Shanghai Jazz in Madison. I don't want to leave my town. If I can have entertainment for me and people who are interested in jazz and who are lovers of jazz, I want to stay right there, be able to walk to it, be able to just see it and enjoy it, and know that other people from other communities are coming there to take part in that along with me, even if it's a Monday through a Friday or if it's the full time during the full week. But I went on the website and I checked out all these different restaurants, which are bar restaurants. Out of the 4, their hours fluctuate. Trumpets, they open Monday through Saturday and actually on a Sunday. And their Friday hours are from 5:30 to 1 o'clock on Friday and Saturday. Sunday they have a brunch from 11:30 to 2:30. And then in the evenings from 7 to midnight. Then Jazz in the Starlight Room in Hopewell, their last bar call is usually 11:45. They close at 11:30 on a Saturday night. Sunday, 11 o'clock. Crosswords in Garwood, their hours, they start at about 5 o'clock, but their bar hours fluctuate from 1:30 to 1:45, and they close at 2. Shanghai Jazz, it depends on the entertainment and the number of people that enter or make reservations. So even though they're close by, it still doesn't give you that opportunity. And when we talk about jazz locally or even in Madison, I'm sorry to say, but that's not real jazz to me. Because when you think about jazz, it started in New Orleans, it started from the African culture. And I have jazz musician friends, and they're like, that's not real jazz. So we need to be a little bit more open-minded for other people in our community besides just the residents who are just in that area who are complaining. I'm sorry to say that. But there are other people who have other needs too, like myself. There is nowhere for a person like myself at my age of African-American descent to socialize besides a church and a few of the restaurants in Morristown. I don't have a place where I can go dance unless I go outside of Morristown. I can go to Montclair, I can go to New York City, I can go to Newark, but I want to stay in my hometown and participate in the growth of the community. Remember, Morristown is a diverse community, and it's growing and it's changing, and every one of us should have a part in that participation. So if there's an issue with anything, I would say that maybe change the hours on the weekends. Maybe close at 1 o'clock. Last bar call at 12:30. If it's during the weekday, close at 12. Last bar call at 11:30. But I think that we need to look at the impact of everybody, how it affects the full community. And the community theater has venues, I understand, there's a wide gamut. But two, they just started to include a lot of more African-American singers and performers. And it's taken a while to do that. I want to be included. I want to feel as though I really belong. And it's changed so dramatically, and I can see the difference. Even younger African-American kids coming uptown and hanging out, Latino kids. Beagle Avenue, they have Latino businesses. And that's changed over time. They actually have Veronicas, which they can go there and they can feel like they're at home with the largest of their population. There's not that in Morristown for the African-American community. So I'm hoping that no one takes it the wrong way, but I know who I am, and I'm representing a large population of people who have a concern. So I am in favor of this bistro opening, and I'm looking forward to participating and being a regular participant or patron on a regular basis. That's it.
Thank you. Anybody else like to share their thoughts?
I do want to share my thoughts. Now, unless I missed something, as far as the Bell Mansion is concerned, this board, this council, these council members are not responsible for that Bell Mansion project. We are not. I take offense of, that's one of my worst pet peeves is getting a finger pointed at me when, you know, it was not my responsibility. There's another redevelopment agency that is responsible for development. It's not this body. It's not this entity.
Would you like me to respond to that?
Yes.
Yes, I understand that it wasn't your responsibility, it was the redevelopment agencies. However, as elected officials in this community, you had every opportunity and right to appear before the municipal redevelopment agency and place an objection, just like any other citizen could, but you didn't.
Well,
and I applaud you for not doing
yes,
it.
just like any other resident of this town.
Yes,
Is
you
that
could
what
have.
you're stating?
But what I'm saying,
Is that what you're stating?
I'm saying you did the right thing. I'm glad that you didn't oppose it.
So, your statements were regarding, like, this board actually did that. So,
No, I
think your statements were that way.
Well, I certainly commend you for not objecting to it.
The other thing I have is, you also mentioned that you were keeping the same people we have now. And right now, from what I heard, it was more of a mature crowd. And also in the testimony, I also heard the ages of 35, 50 plus. Now, my understanding, and I haven't been at the Iron Bar, is currently, like Friday night, Saturday night, it's not 30, 50 plus as being your average clientele. So, you lost me with your statement when you said that.
Would you like me to clarify?
No, there's no need. There's no need, it's for the record. You also made statements in regards to the office. And I have other things to say about the office, and I wish I could say them, but I don't know if I can say them. But the capacity at the office, the old building versus the new building, is nowhere near your current 800. So you're talking more of a, when you say half, what are we talking about? Going from 50 to 100? When we start, why don't we talk percentages? That for whatever reason, for the record, I just want it on the record, that if you're going to be talking in regards to half, you should be talking percentages. Because you're going from 800 to 243. And unfortunately, I can't do that. So I know it's, you know, problem 20, crossing the 30. So, you know, and I have a problem with that. That is our job, to listen to the residents. And quite frankly, if I think about myself and what I do in town, my lifestyle is a little bit different. And I think 11 o'clock is all over me. Okay? So, and I don't know about other folks that are around this table, but they seem to be around the same age frame, maybe exception of one. But there's no need for me to be out probably after 11 o'clock unless I'm with family or so on and so forth. At a party or something like that. So maybe I'm old time or not, but I do love jazz too, but I doubt if I would go to an establishment or a restaurant similar to what you have and stay after that time period. 2 o'clock seems to be a little bit too late for those that are in my time frame that have to work every day. I'm agreeable to 11 o'clock for this type of establishment for most of the reasons why I stated. And the bottom line for me is that we have to look at both sides. Your establishment versus the residents that are here. What the town has established here and the reasons why the town has established what they have established here, meaning bringing residents into the downtown area. And we have to all learn to live in a way where we can all be satisfied. After all, there are people that live here that came to this town that are spending a large amount of money to live in the center of town, and this council should be respecting that, because the type of people that actually are purchasing these homes, hopefully they'll stay, and hopefully it will have great vibes, and hopefully we won't have $1 million plus units that are vacant because they don't want to be bothered with the issues that some of the late bar opening events cause. And that's a quality of life issue for all of the residents of Morristown. All of them. Every taxpayer in this town. I have nothing else to say.
Can I respond?
Sure.
Can we respond?
No. Mr. Elms?
Sure.
Anything you'd like to add?
Sure.
I might need to move your mic.
Okay.
I would say that, like many of the people in this room, I share the same sentiment as all of you. I think this is a great idea, and I think it's a great concept. I'd be very excited to see a jazz venue come to town. I myself, I can say that I've been to Shanghai Jazz myself probably 8 to 10 times in the last 3 years. I think it's a fantastic place, and if we're proposing something similar to this, I'm all for it. What it boils down to, though, is the time frame that we're talking about and the time that the establishment will be able to stay open to and operate. I'm 39 years old, so I guess I fall into the 35 to 55 demographic. Personally, I can't remember the last time I stayed out until 2 a.m. I have 3 small children. They wake up between 6 and 6:30, and I'm not staying out till 2 a.m., so I don't feel that this is being marketed to my demographic. I know the other night, I stood out in front of the Iron Bar at 12:30. It was Friday night, 12:30. There was a line going out the Iron Bar, past Premier, past Zona 13, and going all the way to the ATM machine at the Wells Fargo. I turned to my wife, I asked, would you stand in that crowd, would you stand in that line to go listen to jazz? And she said, no, absolutely not. So I'm all for the concept, I'm all for the venue, but I agree, I think more leaning towards Miss Raylene Smith that we would need to, stay true to the hours that we have discussed prior.
I'd just like to say that from what I've heard, not only on the CDs, but from the public hearing, and me putting myself in the position on the flip side, not just being an at-large council person, but being a resident as well. I do fall in the under 40 bracket. I'm 39. Although I like both the nightlife and I do respect the older life in terms of wanting to have some place to go and feel safe and not have to feel like you're going to always run into the problems that you all experience that you shared before us, at certain hours of the night. I love the fact that we may have a jazz bar. I think it's a great concept. I like the venue. And although it works for me because, as I said, I enjoy the nightlife, but I also have to put everybody else's lives at the spectrum too and take into consideration that if they feel that it's going to hinder or hurt the quality of life and continue to put a damper on the things that they experience each day, I'm willing to be in support of, but also kind of come to a happy medium where everybody can be happy, as Councilwoman said, Smith-Reid said. I think that we should all be able to identify a time that will work great for not only the business owner, but for the members of the public, so that these ones that do have objections can also come out and partake in the festivities if they choose to. So I support the application, but I think that we all need to come to an agreement as to what the appropriate time was on the weekdays versus the weekdays. Councilman
Sure. First of all, I want to say that no conditions were placed on the office bar because there was no public opposition to the application, and as a result, there was no hearing. So if there's no hearing, there's no opportunity for conditions to be placed. I have other ideas on that, but essentially it's the same. We've talked about that before. I like the idea that the restaurant sounds really nice. I defer back to Mr. Williams' response that the jazz is just a complementary element of this application, sort of like the wild boar. If there's a jazz group in town that is going to be able to play here, then we'll move some tables over and we'll accommodate him. So that sounds great. With all respect to Councilwoman Harris, the applicant didn't suggest that this is going to be African American jazz, and you're going to like our jazz. It's not the bad jazz like at Shanghai Jazz. So I don't quite know if you're going to have to provide the good jazz or the not good jazz. I agree with the other council people. I think this idea of why do we stick to the idea of putting a condition to stop the sale of alcohol at 11 o'clock for the extension of liquor licenses in new separate entity, new separate restaurant bars. And I think it goes back to all of the documentation and all the opinions that came out from the previous extensions of liquor licenses that had hearings. Essentially, that that there is a condition of excessive alcohol use, and there are significant amounts of police incidents, DUIs and drinking while, essentially alcohol-related incidents. That was from 2 years ago. There has been no testimony, no documentation that has improved. There are suggestions from some newspaper articles that it may have worsened over the last year. We don't have the police department to confirm or deny that, so I'm going to assume that it hasn't changed. But the case still remains clear that the condition of 2,000 plus people in this small area, all exiting bars between 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock in the morning, results in a condition which deteriorates the quality of life for local residents. And that is why this governing body has placed the 11 o'clock stopping the sale of alcohol at 11 o'clock. So I don't think that's changed. I wouldn't expect this council to change that condition. That being said, I just wanted to go through some of the other conditions that have been expressed in previous applications, which I think are worth noting and would improve the application. The applicant suggested that all of the waste bins except for one would be within the building. I defer back to the office application. One of the great things that they did, which got a lot of support from the public, was they enclosed in all of their waste bins. So if the applicant is successful in getting approval on this, I would hope that they would enclose in all of the waste bins. There has been concern about the trash, urine, et cetera, surrounding the rear of the Iron Bar and that whole esplanade area behind there. And the previous applicants have accepted a condition of cleaning up the surrounding area prior to 7 o'clock the next morning. I don't think I think that's probably required by law, and that would be a great condition to accept. Because of the large number of people in this small area, we have required that for every 50 people on Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights and special events, that one security guard for every 50 people is in attendance. So I would hope that would be a condition of this application as well. I guess that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Well, first I'd like to thank the applicant for a very elaborate presentation and certainly the understanding of the ABC law in all of its permutations. And to the public for coming out yet another time. And I'm losing track of how many times you come out for ABC hearings and how many times you've been here. I want to say that this is my 7th year on the town council. I was sitting here with Councilwoman Smith-Reid and Councilwoman Harris 6 years ago when we allowed the transfer of a liquor license from Jimmy's Haunt to the basement of this building, of this building. And at that time, I was a new councilwoman. We did not have a policy in place, which we then instituted of publicly putting a notice out when something like this was going to happen, and of notifying people within 200 feet. That was not the case at the time. And I'm glad that we've done that because it enables people to know what's going on. If I had foreseen then where we are now with what's going on DeHart Street, on South Street, in the Piazza, my decision might have been different. But that is just a little bit of history. I would say that almost all of the supporters of this project who came out were not residents of the town and certainly not neighbors in this area. I represent the first ward in which this building sits, but it goes, all the way from Market Street, even part of Catano, all the way almost to Normandy Parkway, Morris Street, South Street, a really wide area. And what I don't have people asking me for is more places where they can stay out till 2 in the morning. I get lots of other requests for what they wish they could see in spaces downtown. Commitments to capacity today really don't seem to mean much. And I say that because 600 plus an understandable 200 because you had to be able to use the first floor. The move from 800 to the 1,000 plus had nothing to do with this body at all. It was a change to fire doors. So what we approve here and what can really happen someday if furniture is moved or something is changed concerns me greatly. Another 4,700 square feet of licensed premises open till 2 a.m. is not what the area can sustain. Promises of jazz music would be fantastic, just as we were offered a bowling alley, and everyone said, we'd love a bowling alley, but not with alcohol served till 2 a.m. I think we're all looking for something to do other than just eat out or just drink. And certainly to be able to hear live music of any kind from any part of the world, preferably not a cover band, would be terrific. But that could be offered in the current establishment or in the other establishments that we have in town, if in fact there was a market for it. Maybe in fact there is and that will happen. But we can't force it to happen, not now and not in the future. It's really a separate issue. To the question of the office and its allowed expansion, yeah, I sat here and we discussed it and there were no objections and people were notified and a notice was placed on the premises. And essentially what happened was the ability to include all trash inside, have new up-to-date bathrooms, a better kitchen, and more dining tables sounded like a great idea. It was a tired establishment and allowing what I believe was really 50 additional seats, although I won't debate the exact number, has proven to be a real win for people who are looking for a place to go out to eat. Unfortunately, the conditions that were reported by people who came to us from each of these other expansions, transfers, whatever, into Hart or on South have really not improved. The town is spending more money cleaning up. The partnership is spending more money cleaning up. The police are policing more than ever, and those are numbers that we could get. But we all know what's going on, so the mess is getting cleaned up a little bit better, but fundamentally the noise, the peeing outside, the drunk drivers, broken tree on Speedwell, the newly planted island at Elm and South that's now taken out by a drunk driver, these things are not getting better. If anything that we read in the paper is accurate, it's potentially getting worse. I want to also mention the point about the master plan was really valid. This is a residential neighborhood. In addition to the residences at the Metropolitan and 40 Park, Building C will hopefully come before us soon onto Hart Street. That building backs up to this parking deck where all of these people pour out at 2 in the morning, and we all know that the more we drink and the later it is, the louder we get. So that's a problem. In addition, just this week, just last night, the council designated for redevelopment without the possibility of condemnation a parcel between Market and Bank, which may well become additional residences that would be subject to any noise that's bouncing out between these buildings and the parking garage. So that's a concern here. Not to mention the loss of yet another potentially retail space. So the conditions that residents reported, and I feel that in this hearing, people have figured they trust us, we've been at this before, we've been consistent, we've heard them, and they didn't want to bore us with restating everything that makes what's going on at 2 in the morning hard to deal with. So I want to read from the denial of the bowling alley on Hart Street, and that was denied because of the hours that could not be agreed to. And that was denied because, and I'm reading these because I believe they continue to be true, the addition of another liquor establishment in this area would exacerbate quality of life issues that exist in the neighborhood, including but not limited to parking congestion, noise issues, garbage and sanitation issues, and issues with public urination and other bodily fluids. The health and welfare of the community would be detrimentally affected by the addition of another liquor establishment. because of the already high concentration of vehicles and people in the neighborhood at late hours of the night within close proximity to residential homes. DeHart Street's a narrow roadway. It's difficult for vehicles and service trucks to pass and or unload with the number of residences and establishments that already exist. An additional liquor establishment would only increase these issues. And finally, there is significant concern that the proposed location for the liquor license establishment would allow for additional noise to emanate into the surrounding residential properties. So those really are the continued existing concerns between 11 at night and 2 in the morning. I think it's terrific to have a venue where you can go hear original live music. And then at 11 o'clock, when the carpet rolls up, if you want to stay out till 2, there's certainly no lack of places. An establishment there that can hold 1,000 people for people to do that. But I can't support taking another multiple thousands of square feet of space and licensing it till 2 in the morning, not given everything else that we've heard.
Mr. Williams, I'm going to give you a chance to respond. I know you're in some ways creating a record, and then we're going to vote.
Mr. Attorney, may I make a last comment?
Yes.
I want to just reiterate my feelings and sentiments. Those are my opinions and also what other residents have said to me in the African American community. And Mr. Armington, thank you for correcting my opinion. It was just my opinion of what I've seen and what I've been told. But I would like to propose changing the hours of operation from Sunday through Thursday, closing at 12, and on Saturday and Friday and Saturday, closing at 1 p.m. So I'd like to take that to a vote.
Could you repeat that, please?
Sunday through Thursday, 12, Saturday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 1. No, Friday and Saturday.
No, Sunday through Thursday, 12 o'clock midnight, closing. Friday, Saturday, 1 o'clock p.m.
AM.
Half an hour early, bar call, last call.
Do we have a second? Well, I mean, she made a motion. Councilwoman Harris, we don't have a second for your.
No problem, thank you.
Okay.
Yes, I'd just like to, I said the same thing, I think, 15 or 20 times. And I understand, Council President, what you just read, because I did that application. But the application is somewhat different. That was for a new building. This is not for a new building. The application that you just read all the conditions on brought more people to the site. This application brings no more people. It's still the same amount of people. So if you have 1,043 September 1st, and you approve this application, you still have 1,043. And guess what? We can't change that because we're taking it as a special condition. The licensing of this expansion is conditioned upon limiting to 1,043. So I don't care what the fire code says. We can't go above 1,043. So you really have nothing to worry about.
I am going to respond to that because the issue of a new building or not a new building is irrelevant to me. Because what we're talking about is expanding the capacity for 2 a.m. service of alcohol from the current Iron Bar to the Gran Cantina and the adjacent space. It's additional new space. This same applicant agreed to an 11 p.m. cutoff for the Gran Cantina to focus on it being a restaurant and not add to the 2 a.m. crowd. What I'm saying very clearly is we have there are too many people coming out of the bars at 2 in the morning and creating too much havoc and very detrimental quality of life for people who live in the area. So just as with the Gran Cantina, which this area includes, stopping the service of alcohol at 11 p.m., that is what I would support for this additional space between Gran Cantina and the Iron Bar.
It appears to me that we're at a procedural, we have two things we can do. It appears to me we have two, is my mic power? It appears to me that we have two things that we can do. We can vote to deny the application in total, or we can craft a motion that gives you permission with the kind of constraints that we've talked about. I'm not sure where your head is, where your client's head is, and would you accept the conditions that we've kind of imposed previously, or do you just want a denial of the application? And I presume that.
Well, you could also approve the application.
I presume based
There's three
upon
things you can do.
I presume based upon the board's soliloquy that they're not going to approve it.
Well, I did a little head counting myself here, and I found that there was 1, 2, at least 4 or 5 that were in favor of approving it, but with some limitations.
Right, and I'm asking you, do you want us to craft the limitations? Is that something you're interested in, or are you interested in having an application that goes to 2 a.m.?
Well, you could pass a resolution with the conditions under 33-132.
Okay.
The applicant either accepts them, or he files an appeal, or he doesn't build it.
Okay.
But if you give me 5 minutes, maybe I could converse with my clients.
That's what I was trying to do. Trying to give you some opportunity to have a conversation with the client. Let me know what you're.
You know, and give you some idea how we feel.
What I presume is that at this point we're going to have a resolution at 11 o'clock. We're going to talk about trash. We're going to talk about security. I'm sorry.
I was just going to make a comment. We've heard time and time again about positive reviews and good feelings regarding Shanghai Jazz. I did go and check out the Shanghai Jazz website, and that is open until 11:30 on Friday and Saturdays. So I would be willing to support 11:30 close on Fridays and Saturdays with 11 p.m. weekdays, which again that would essentially mirror Shanghai Jazz, and I think that most people would be okay with that.
So Sunday through Thursday, 11, or is that Friday and Saturday, 11:30? Or is that okay?
And that's to close the establishment.
I'm sorry.
That's to close the establishment or to stop serving alcohol?
Oh, that's a good question.
I believe they stopped serving at 11.
They certainly don't close.
Yes, they do. They absolutely close the door.
This is a deliberation among the council, please.
Well, it's again misrepresentation on the part of
Please, please. I don't want to have to call the officers to have you removed.
I would suggest, rather than name exactly when they stopped serving alcohol there, both on DeHart Street and at the Gran Cantina, we said 11 o'clock, and I'd
I
like
don't
to see
remember
us be
what did we do.
consistent.
Did we talk about the last call, or did we? I forgot.
No,
We
it's
decided
right
that.
here. No alcohol shall be served after 11 p.m. I'd like to see us just be consistent.
Not 11:30?
Nope, because I'd like us to be consistent as the public and the applicants asked us to be. You can always go next door for one more drink.
Councilman Elms put something on the floor. I don't know if we have a second to get to a point. I second. Okay.
The sale of alcohol will stop at 11:30
On Friday and Saturday.
Friday and Saturday.
Okay, so that's one. How about the issues of trash, having all the trash being closed?
I think that's important.
That means no dumpsters outside on the piazza.
7 a.m. Restoration, making sure the property is returned to pristine condition by 7 a.m. Okay. The security, what did we talk about, 50?
It's right here.
Okay. One security officer for every 50 people within the premises on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. And any night on which there will be any special attractions or major sporting events, broadcasts, or live band, DJ, music.
I think what we're talking about is Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, or some major events. For example, St. Patrick's Day.
So are we comfortable with this language?
Yes.
You're addressing our expansion, where you want us to have one security guard for every one of our dining seats?
No, one security guard for every 50.
Just you want us to have 4 security people Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night to watch these people dine.
You
This
agree?
makes no sense.
I believe it says.
This is from the Gran Cantina resolution.
It's a different application. This is a full-scale restaurant.
It's between, I believe it's between 11 and
There's no restaurant in town that has that. You don't have Roots have one for every 50 people. You don't have it at the office. Why would you do it?
What happened? Yeah. What do you want to do?
I don't believe that the problems that occur within the confines of the property. Typically, they occur in the surrounding neighborhoods, which this would not assist. So I guess I would withdraw that condition.
Do you have a consensus around that issue?
Yes.
So you're not going to have additional security. Okay.
Okay, so additional security,
So apparently, in resolution 149.
I understand the additional security issue.
Right.
I understand it, but we're looking at a place that is expanding from 800 to 1,043.
Right.
That currently does not have any conditions on security. And we had looked at security previously because we felt for the safety of the participants that are venturing there, that it was needed. So I'm not 100% sure why would we strike it out.
I think it's important to note that we can't apply conditions to the other 800. We can only apply restrictions to the 50, to the 238 or whatever.
Okay, so is that the reason why? That's what we're saying?
I've been to...
I'm not sure we can.
I'm asking. You're saying you can't, you're not sure.
I have to look. I'm not sure if we can impose these conditions on the entire 1,100 people, 1,043.
That's my question.
Well, is there a standard in place currently for the Iron Bar? I mean, I've been to the Iron Bar, and there's a security presence that is always there. I mean, there's a big guy there, and there's a big guy there, and a big guy. I mean, they do a relatively good job from what I can see of keeping security.
There is no requirement in your current license to have any number of security.
So if they're doing it already, it shouldn't be a problem if the condition exists.
And since they haven't had any violations,
that would indicate that they are doing a good job.
So,
And I mean, you don't walk into David Todd's and see 3 security guards, and that's a restaurant with a liquor license. So I don't think that this holds true for carry across. But
So the applicant did agree to this condition for the Gran Cantina, and we're now looking at an area that's double the size, roughly, as a cantina. And they agreed to it. The council at the time felt it was necessary. It was never implemented. It could be changed upon renewal. If it's unnecessary. I guess what I'm suggesting is we be consistent with our cantina, and we all pretty much work forward. Because it's the same location, but double the size, on the hours, on the trash, on the security, and see if the applicant is willing to do for the double space what he was willing to do for the Gran Cantina.
is a 1 for 50 an industry standard for nightclubs, or do we just come up with this arbitrarily?
Came up with arbitrarily.
But it was agreed to.
But why don't we impose it, and then if after a year there's some, there are no violations,
So are we imposing are we imposing 5 security guards on up to 250 or 4? For every place where it's 4 because they won't get to 250, or are we imposing 21?
don't think we're opposed. In my opinion, I don't think we can oppose on the existing use.
Okay, so we're going to oppose it on the expanded use.
That's my.
As we did for the
Okay.
So,
I'm okay with that.
so they would need a security guard on a Monday night and on a Wednesday night?
It's only Thursday, Friday,
Is this
Saturday.
only Thursday, Friday, Saturday?
The language of the original Cantina project says Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
And it actually says, and any night during which there will be any special.
Oh, special events. But,
I don't think jazz really applies to a special attraction. Since they're kind of have a jazz club. It's not really special.
I think it was represented that music would be primarily on weekends.
Council President, would you be amenable to run for 100?
At this point, I don't know if it really will be of any difference to the applicant.
Okay.
Can we ask the applicant how many security people they have in the current time frame on a Saturday night?
We have on a Saturday night up to 15, depending on the weekend, but we haven't had any problems regulating our existing facility. It's almost insulting that you're telling us now that we're opening a restaurant and we're going to have 4 security guards in our restaurant, and we operate with 800 people for over a year and a half with not one violation. This doesn't sound right to me.
What's your pleasure? I'm looking at the council to develop.
Well, I would say that
I would-
15 security
I would-
guards is 1 for 50, it sounds like, roughly.
I would agree with Mr. Williams that since they
is.
haven't had any violations, I would expect that they will put in place the right number of security guards. They have shown that there is a concern of theirs in the last 3 years since they've been open. And so I would trust that that's the case. I think that we have the power to place a condition for additional security in June if this, or basically, at the annual renewal, if it's clearly an issue. And I think that what's important is that if they have 15 out front or inside and out front, that probably transfers over to the area right next door. It's not like we're requiring an expansion of the area, police force, and they have to pay for it. But that's my opinion.
Okay. So I think we have a motion that requires the applicant to close or stop serving alcohol at 11 p.m. on Sunday through Thursday and 11:30 on Friday and Saturday night. We have a motion that requires the applicant to enclose all trash receptacles. And we have a motion that requires the applicant to restore the exterior premises in pristine condition by 7 a.m. We're not going to impose a security condition on the applicant, on the expansion. So if we can get a motion, we can start.
Make a motion to approve, given the conditions of
I'd second that.
Matt, we need a vote. Roll call.
And just to restate the question, stop service 11 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, 11:30 Friday and Saturday, enclose all trash receptacles, and restore the exterior conditions to pristine conditions by 7 a.m.
Okay, so we have one question. Is it enclosed or is it put indoors?
As with the cantina.
what do we define
indoors?
I don't know.
I'd say indoors.
Indoors?
What did the office do? Are we saying that the office? I think it's appropriate to put it indoors.
Which is what was planned for the cantina. The applicant agrees it shall convert its storage area space on the first floor to an additional trash area. It is expected that the applicant will be able to store its garbage and recyclables within the interior trash areas. So not the dumpster outside, stocked around.
You got it. All right, Matt, you got the modification.
Or are we talking then, all the garbage shall be stored within interior trash areas, or are we using language indoors?
Within the interior trash areas.
So, all trash receptacles.
I think that means indoors. I don't know if I can understand the difference, but I think
So just
Within the footprint.
I think the language that was used in the cantina resolution was agreed to at that time by the applicant and made sense. And consistent.
Can you pass up this?
Sure.
Mirror the language.
I want to mirror the language for the trash receptacle.
Number 4.
Correct.
Of the cantina, that language being the applicant agrees that it shall convert its storage area space on the first floor to an additional trash area. It is expected that the applicant will be able to store its garbage and recyclables within the interior trash areas.
Correct.
Care if it's first floor?
I don't care if it's first floor.
Let's start there.
All right.
Yes.
So we're striking on the first floor.
Yes.
So the motion is stop service 11 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, 11:30 Friday and Saturday. Restore the exterior conditions to pristine conditions by 7 a.m. And the applicant agrees that it should convert its storage area space to an additional trash area. It's expected the applicant will be able to store its garbage and recyclables within the interior trash areas.
Correct.
And that's the motion. We're ready for the question.
I have a question.
Oh,
Can you just state the hours of closing? You stated information about hours, but I wasn't sure if that was last call for serving at the bar or the closing hours of the establishment.
it's closing. It's not serving alcohol.
And the establishment is closing at what time?
I think the concern is really the service of alcohol.
That's not what my question was. I asked the question was what time were they closed?
In the past, we haven't specified.
I would say that they can stay open to whatever temporary.
Yeah.
time it is.
The band can play on.
We're not placing conditions on that.
Thank you. That's what I just wanted to clarify.
Okay.
No, I don't think I need to restate the question. Mr. Armington.
Yes.
Mr. Elms.
Yes.
Ms. Foster.
Yes.
Ms. Harris.
Yes.
Ms. Smith-Reid.
Yes.
Council President Feldman.
Yes.
And the motion passes.
Council President, we have no further business here this evening.
Pretty close.